Okay, now you all get to think about it. Let's look at each of the definition quickly. Okay, learning, most of you pointed out, is to acquire knowledge and skills. It's the process of absorbing and retaining information so that your skills or abilities can be improved. That's learning. Regardless of whether, so in this case, learning doesn't differentiate between theoretical learning or technical learning. It's just in general. As long as it is, you absorb and retain information to increase your skills and abilities. That is part of learning. What you're doing now is learning. When you go for a meeting, you also learn. So learning is basically ongoing. Can take place anywhere, anytime, and not necessarily structured. You don't have to go to school to learn. Basically. Okay, so education, training, and development are all important facets of learning. Okay. For this, okay, I think I can't remember if I told your class this, but I can't remember which famous person said this about learning. Basically, for example, we will learn economics by ourselves, maybe in 10 years or 20 years over our lifetime. We will learn something about economics, okay, or business. Okay. But education is structured and it allows us to learn what we may take 20 years to learn in a period of 4 years. So that's what education is. So learning is basically ongoing. While you're doing your work, you can learn. When you're talking to your classmates, you can learn. It's not necessarily must be through formal education. Okay? So this is the relationship. You have training, you have education, you have development, and they are all learning. Okay, development, staff development. Okay, these are all considered learning. Okay, then let's look at education versus training. There are two approaches in your course notes. The conventional approach, we separate education and training. The new approach, education and training goes hand in hand. Okay, so two approaches, conventional and new paradigm. Education and training goes hand in hand. So just now on your mind map, the exercise, a few groups pointed out that you go for education first, then you go for training. That is the old school thinking. Okay, the new thinking will be education and training goes hand in hand. For example, work-learn diploma. For example, your ITE education. We have a little bit of both elements because you go for internship. Okay, let's look at the conventional approach first. It stressed the difference between different facets of learning. That is the theoretical part and the practical part. Okay, last time people look at these two things separately. Okay. The reason is because of its history. Okay, we'll take a look at it. Okay, education is the university system. Training is a trade. Okay. If you next time when you watch movies, or or even TV shows about olden times like Game of Thrones, uh, I can't remember, some Chinese fighting shows, you will notice that the show tells you a little bit about history. You will see scholars, and then you will see those people in trade, like the bakers, the weapon makers. Okay, so all these, so the weapon makers, they gain their learning through practices and by finding an expert to teach them. Okay, university is just for studying. Like last time the university students, they don't go for internship because university is all about studying theories. Okay. So the university system is meant for wealthy people because university education even now is expensive. Training are meant for youngsters, the not so wealthy one, but everybody still needs to work, right? So the method for education is you study. The method for training last time is apprenticeship. Okay. Areas, these are the different areas. Okay, of course, there are others, but from your course notes, it's like this only. And then the purpose is you education before trade. So these people, when they graduate, they will probably work for the government, they will be judges, they will be of higher levels. Here, they are of the lower level last time. Not now. So far, so good. Any question? Okay, I'll move on. Okay. So education, you learn about those in education last time, they only learn about theory. They gain knowledge from research. For training, they learn the skills and knowledge needed to perform current tasks or to improve their work performance. Whereas here, there's nothing to do with work. Okay, keep in mind, we're still talking about the conventional approach. For those who took part in education last time, the setting is formal and structured. Like now, you are in school, and it's in an academic institution. For those under apprenticeship, they learn at their workplace. So a lot of OJTs, on the job training. Education, more for students. Training for current employees. When you go and learn a trade, they hire you already. For example, you learn to be a weapon maker, you learn to be a baker, you learn to be a chef. Next, the purpose of education is to allow students to learn a broad range of problem-solving skills and is supported by theories. Theories are research. For training, the workers gain, it's for workers to improve work performance, like what we talk about here. Assessments for education will be exams, like you still go for assessment. For training, it's the completion of tasks. Okay. So how can you relate these two? Okay, think of education as you're studying in ITE. Your training will be your internship. You have a task list. ITE, you have to go for exams. Okay, and next. So conventional approach, there's a difference between education and training. Education is you know. Training, you just do. Like your internship, you do. Here you know only. But that you know in theory doesn't mean that you know how to do. Okay, the old Chinese proverb, what I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. What I do, I understand. I do. Okay, keep this in mind. We'll talk about this later on. Okay, now, new paradigm. Education and training. You notice the word and? They are together now. Okay, to counter the challenges of the VUCA environment. Okay, VUCA is this. Not the first time you hear this. I mentioned it before previously. I don't know if you remember. VUCA. V stands for volatility, U for uncertainty, C for complexity, and A for ambiguity. Okay. You can read, if you're interested, you can read more about this by Googling. The world, we call it, the world is our VUCA environment. Okay, basically it just says that things just keeps changing. Okay, and we are constantly and yes, okay, and we are affected. Okay, and things are VUCA. The world is VUCA because of these four things, which we will look at in detail. Okay, so this is available in your course notes as well. Okay, the VUCA environment affected by these four things outside. Digital revolution. Okay, you don't have to know. We have 4 revolution. Okay, you just know that digital revolution. All of us, most of us, don't know about the first 2, including myself. Okay. I know about this one and this one. Okay, because 1969 till today. How the world has changed. So briefly, last time, here is water power and steam power. Instead of electricity, we have water power and steam power. Then second time is the second industrial revolution. We have mass production and assembly line and electricity. That's when production workers, we have demand for a lot of production workers. Third will be computer and automation. Then now we're moving towards cyber and physical system. Internet of all things. Okay. We call this Industry 4.0. Okay. There's also unemployment. There are 3 different types of unemployment. First is frictional. When workers leave their old job but haven't found new one yet. For example, sometimes people will quit first, then will find job. So during this period of unemployment, we call them fictional. You don't have to remember this, just know for your knowledge. Okay. Structural unemployment. Okay, I'll touch on this later. Cyclical unemployment is caused by economy. Either economy booming or we are in recession. We all know that when the economy is moving, is booming, unemployment is lower. When we are in recession, people tend to get retrenched more. So this one is unemployment to do with how well the economy is doing. The government is not afraid of frictional and cyclical unemployment, because once the economy improves, the unemployment rate will reduce. This one, people only leaving their old job, they are still finding. Doesn't mean that they cannot find a job. What the government is worried about, and the core of this module, is because of structural unemployment. There's a mismatch in the skills of the workers and what is needed by the employers. For example, COVID again. Do you all know what became in demand during this whole year, this past 1 year? Anyone? What skills became in demand?
Digitalization with the skills actually because of the COVID-19, because of social distancing.
Huh? Okay, not mainly because of social distancing, but yes, who else? Farah? Digitalization, correct, but not because of social distancing. Farah, anything else?
Hard skills.
Hard skills are like, because of COVID, hard skills, okay, like?
Because they do that one what, like online, so you need to know all those, like computer programming stuff. I don't know.
Okay, again,
Yeah.
digitalization skills. So basically, all these are tech skills. So, tech skills. And then the world wants tech skills, but then the country doesn't have. So there's a mismatch. Then at the same time, the airlines people are getting retrenched, right? Certain industry got affected. The entertainment industry got affected. Those people working in nightlife, the bartenders, the waiters working in nightlife, they all have no job. But then they cannot move on to the tech. They cannot move on to work in the tech industry because they don't have the necessary skills. So the government is very afraid of this because this will cause the economy to be in constant recession. So that's why nowadays you see our Singapore government pushing for skills future, constant upgrading. Somebody during the beginning of the lesson, they talk about upskilling, reskilling. You don't hear this last time. It's a recent movement. Okay. And then this is also related to TAM. Okay. Population changes also caused our environment to be very VUCA, very volatile. Changes in population. We have more senior citizens, and then we have less babies. And then when we have less babies, we have less people working. When we have less people working, the economy is not good for the economy, because then the economy is not productive. What are the factors that will affect population? I mentioned just now one of them is birth rate. Trisha.
Yes.
Make a guess. What affects population other than birth rate?
Mm. I'm not sure.
Sling?
Hi.
Hi.
I didn't hear the question.
Oh, didn't hear the question. What affects population is on the screen.
Oh, what factors that will affect population?
Hmm.
I don't know.
No, nobody knows that. Teacher?
Sort of like a
Karen?
so like
Karen? I
yes.
asked Christian. Can you let Christian answer?
Immigration.
Me, is it?
Immigration is one of them. Christian, what do you say?
Oh no, I said like Christian Go, is it?
Yeah, there's only one Christian here. The other Christian still haven't come in yet. Still sleeping, I think.
Um, I would say economy.
Why?
Or okay, I'm not so sure. But I think it affects.
Okay, you keep your thought. Okay, Darren, you will say something?
Well, yeah, because I know the more like the economy actually is slow down. Actually, there was the factors affecting the jobs actually for the factors affecting the population.
You misunderstood the question. Population here means demographic changes.
Okay.
Okay.
What I meant is that one for the factors that will affect the population is regarding the digital revolution because nowadays in human resource we use artificial intelligence actually one thing actually.
Okay. We actually basically are talking about population growth lah, Darren.
Okay.
Yeah, so okay, let's move on. Okay. These are the factors affecting population growth. Okay, let's look at it. Somebody mentioned economic growth. Okay, why? Because when the economy is richer most of the time, okay, richer, they are able to afford more, then they can have more children. Okay, basically it's like that. Okay. Cost of education. Female moving into the labor market. Okay, I think easiest to understand will be government policy. How will government policy affect population growth? Clarice.
Like the government, they will limit. They will set up like some limitation for the population, like the birth policy. Those, yeah.
For example, it should be very close to your heart.
China one-child policy.
Very good. China one-child policy. They used to have a one-child policy when they want to reduce the number of population. Now, I think they have lifted recently. Okay, so government policy will also affect population growth. Availability of conception. Conception means birth control things lah. Okay, healthcare standard also affect population because with better healthcare, our life expectancy increases. We are able to live longer. Okay, so more population. Last time, long time ago, the average age of a human being about 30 to 40 years old. Now we have progressed to about 80. Okay, so these are the factors affecting population growth. Okay. Now I want you to hear what Mr. Chan said about global connectivity and uncertainties recently.
First, I will explain why the choice of words US, China, and trade conflict is not exactly.
Can you all hear?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Very precise. Second part, I will answer what we need to do as a country and as companies. Let me touch on the first part. Today, the challenges that we are facing on the external environment is not exactly limited to only the tensions between US and China. The uncertainties around the world has gone beyond US and China. It includes the uncertainties with Brexit, Japan and Korea, Hong Kong, and others. It has also affected the functioning of the WTO system, the World Trade Organization, of which the challenges to the continued functioning of the appellate body is a serious concern for all of us. So it is not just about US and China. The second part is that it is also not just about a trade war. The competition between US-China today has gone beyond trade to encompass technology and other issues. So it's a more multifaceted challenge that we are dealing with. Now, with that as the backdrop, the question is, how do we as a country and as companies adapt and adjust our strategy amidst all these uncertainties? Let me touch on a three-pronged strategy that I think we need to adopt: diversification, innovation and investment, and training. Let me elaborate on diversification. To manage the uncertainties ahead of us, which may take quite a while to settle down, we should continuously diversify our markets, our supply chains, and our product mix. For the diversification of the markets, we must always remember that there are still many parts of the world that are experiencing strong and positive growth. And this is the reason why MTI with the economic agencies will continue to diversify our portfolio of free trade agreements, both in terms of the number of free trade agreements and the quality of the free trade agreement, in order for our companies to access the markets around the world, especially those with strong and positive growth. The second part of diversification has to do with supply chains. In this world of flux, supply chains might be disrupted because of economic and political reasons. And this is why the economic agencies are working closely with all our companies to make sure that our sources of materials, labors, and other factors of productions are continuously will continuously stay robust and resilient amidst these shifting geopolitical tensions. Last but not least, we must continue to diversify our product mix as an economy. We must make sure that no one particular sector dominates the economy to the extent that it causes us to be much more fragile than we need to be. And this is how we have approached the situation over the last many years. And if we look at the numbers today, while some sectors like the electronics, the precision engineering, and the wholesale trade and retail are down, there are also sectors in the ICT, Infocom sector, in the biomedical sector, in the professional services that are still up. So that diversification of our economy and products mix actually helps us to stabilize the overall economic performance. The second strategy that we need to adopt amidst all this flux is to make sure that we continue to innovate and invest. First, we must make sure that we continuously do better to translate our research outcome into enterprises. We must complete the research, innovation, and enterprise cycle, not a chain, but a cycle. And we must build real capabilities beyond building capacities. We must compete on the basis of real capabilities rather than just capacities. For countries that are much bigger than us with much stronger and more diverse resource base, they might compete on the basis of capacity. But for us, we compete on the basis of capability. It's often said that many countries are competing on the low mix, high volume products. That is a lot to do with capacity. For us, if we are to be serious in competing with what we call the high mix, low volume products, then research and innovation, intellectual property protection, quality standards are all very important, and those play to our strengths. The second thing that we need to invest much more on is the adoption and proliferation of our digital platforms, especially amongst the small and medium enterprises within our economy. These are not very difficult solution sets. They are available in the market, and we are committed to work with our trade associations and chambers to make sure that we accelerate the pace of adoption. And when we achieve critical mass, it will also bring about a vicious cycle for us to reduce the price of adoption and allows businesses to do business with one another easier. Last but not least, with or without the current challenges amidst the global uncertainties, we must continuously look at our production system and processes. And there's always room for us to innovate in such things beyond the innovation in products. It's about the innovation in production systems and processes that can make us more productive. The third prong of the strategy has to do with training. There are three subparts to the training strategy, which I think we need to focus on. We have often talked about the training of the workers, and that is well known. And we'll continue to invest heavily in the training of our workers, especially in the acquisition of skills for the Industry 4.0 journey, the digital platforms, and so forth. This is an area where SSG, WSG, NTUC, and the trade association chambers must work closely to bring the level of our skills of our workers up to speed with what is required by the markets. But having said that, it is necessary but insufficient just to focus on workers' training. We also need to focus more heavily on the training of the leadership teams in the respective companies. And this is an area that I have discussed with many of the trade associations and chambers, and we can do much more. From my own experience in NTUC, before we even talk about the training of the workers, it is most important for us to open up the vision of the management team. For example, in the recent rollout of the Scale Up Singapore initiative, we did not focus just on the workers' training. We focused on the training of the management team by getting the entire management team to come in, do their visioning exercise, do their change management exercises together as a team before we even talk about the workers' training. Last but not least, when it comes to training, we will have to do much more to better organize ourselves and agents and our respective agencies, from the trade associations and chambers to the overseas missions from EDB and ESG and other economic agencies, so that we can combine the market knowledge that we have to help our enterprises to diversify their markets beyond Singapore. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, in short, I think the current situation warrants us to take a close look at how we develop our companies and economies, and we must go beyond looking at just the US-China issues. We must go beyond looking. First, I will explain.
Okay, so that will give you a little bit insight on the new paradigm that Singapore is moving towards. Okay, so far, any question? Okay, I assume no. Okay, so this is Singapore's approach. These are Singapore's approach. I'm sure we all hear of Skills Future, SG. From our RNS, we heard of Ministry of Manpower. We hear Workforce Development Agency also, and then we hear Workforce Singapore. Okay, some differences, huh? So please take note. Okay. Okay, Skills Future, it is a stat board under MOE. Skills Future, MOE. Its purpose is to drive and coordinate the implementation of National Skills Future movement, which you are very familiar with. You will see you will see a lot of advertisement on it. Okay. It is also, another purpose is for it to promote a culture and holistic system of lifelong learning and skill mastery. It will also ensure students and working adults have access to high quality industry relevant training throughout their life. Okay, why do you think throughout life is important? Jolene. Why do you think it is important? Why do you think this word is important in their objective throughout life?
When you grow older, you need to upgrade yourself to follow up the economic or something.
Why do we need to upgrade ourselves?
So that we are able to follow up the economic or that, you know.
Why do we need to keep following up? Why will the economy change? We talked about it just now. What is the V word?
Huh? I don't know eh.
Something that sounds like mocha.
I cannot remember.
I don't remember. Can anyone remember? File. File.
Yes.
You remember the word?
No.
No. Anissa?
Yes.
What's the word that I used just now? The V word? That sounds like mocha.
Uh, I don't know.
No, no. Okay, Firdaus?
Hello.
No. What's the word?
On the view, is it?
Uh-huh.
Um.
Okay, please remember the word, everybody. The word is VUCA. Volatility, uncertainty. Those four words, remember?
Yes.
This one. Complexity and ambiguity, okay? Okay, and then it brings together, let's continue with Skills Future, brings together continuing education and pre-employment training. Okay, what you are doing now, we call it pre-employment training, PET. I think we learned this in RNS, right? CET is anything after the university or poly. In the moment you start work, any education that you embark on, we call it CET. Okay. Just now, the new paradigm goes hand in hand, right? Just a recap. Okay. The new paradigm integrates education and training. New paradigm, we learn for skills and life. That's why you learn your life skills, not just about grades. Okay. But that doesn't give you an excuse to not do well for grades. Grades still important. It's just that there are equal emphasis between education and training. This is not saying that one is less important than the other. This is basically saying both are equally important to a person's life and work. There are also a lot of bite-sized and just-in-time training. For example, you see a lot of TED Talks. You see a lot of other 5 to 10 minutes video to teach you about something. Then there's also blended learning. Okay, blended learning, the government, MOE, also just announced that all institutions must have some form of blended learning integrated in the curriculum. So it has to be a structure now. Okay. So what's blended learning? Blended learning, there is a mix of digital and face-to-face learning. Okay. We'll talk about this. We'll talk more about the different types of learning later on. Okay. Okay. So just now we talked about education and training. Okay. Now let's compare training and staff development. Okay. What is staff development? You talk about it just now, you go and look at it. So basically the word staff tells you that it has got to do with workers and employees. Okay. It is the development that focuses on the future task or role in the company. It prepares employees to keep pace with organizational changes or growth. Basically, building up capabilities or helping the employee perform optimally. Okay, so training versus development. So development is for the future. Training is current. So for your case, can you identify training? Irfan, the case analysis that you did, that your group did just now.
Sorry?
The case, based on the case study just now, can you tell me what is a training here and what is a development here?
The training. It's more like interpersonal skills.
Interpersonal skills, is it current? Is it training or development?
Development.
Because there's a need, they want to do it in the future. Then we talk what is a training.
The training. The training. I'm not really sure.
So there's something to do with sales. Competency in English, that is a training. Okay, just to give you an example of what is training and development based on the case. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, training is tactical. Okay, tactical meaning is to do with the current situation, whereas development is for the future. Okay, and it's strategic. So for example, you are going to be promoted. Okay, you are going to be promoted from a member to become a team leader. So the company needs to prepare you to be a team leader. So we'll send you for training of, for example, leadership skills, communication skills. So these are strategic. Okay, the company is developing you to take on more responsibility. Okay, so that is a kind of development. Okay. Whereas a training will be, you are, regardless of whether you are a group member, you are a team member, or you are a team leader, your performance is not up to par. For example, you don't know how to use the company proprietary system, and then the company send you for training. Okay, is to ensure that you are performing to your expected level. So training uses very low work experience, whereas development needs very high experience. Okay. And the goal of training, like I mentioned just now, is to ensure that you are successful in your current job. Okay. The goal of development is to ensure that you are successful in both the current and future jobs. Most of the time, training is required because it's to do with current job. Development, we can think of it as voluntary. Okay? Any question? Okay, let's move on. Learning versus development. Okay. The focus of learning is on both knowledge and skills. Focus of development is on growing the individual through action and practice and turn desired behavior into habits. For example, a trainee chef into a pastry chef. That's the development. Okay. I will leave you to read the learning organization by yourself. It's in your course notes. Okay. Today, we have completed the first objective. We talked about the differences between learning, education, training, and staff development. Okay. So let's talk about your training needs survey. Okay. You have, as a group, okay, so after today's session, okay, we have also talked about we have also analyzed the case. You have also seen everyone's contribution. I've also pointed out some glaring errors if I need to. After this, I need your group, okay, at your own time, to sit together and discuss to see how you can improve on the 6 areas, the 6 categories. Okay, that's one. Next, try to find a link between the 6 areas. Okay, like for example, just now I pointed out some links, right? If you can, you try to identify the links. Okay, all these identification will help you in writing your report. Okay, so that's one. Then next, you roughly have an idea of the needs, the problems, what else? And you have the idea of the needs, the problems, what are the current training? Okay, and you also have some recruitment issues. Okay, with that, I need you to do research on training needs survey. Look at it and take some questions out. By Friday or next week Monday, I want to take a look at your survey questions. Okay, keep in mind, minimum 10. There's no maximum, but you also need to keep in mind that this is supposed to be a survey that you will execute and people will not hate you after doing it. So although there's no maximum, as a minimum, you also need to be very discerning in how many questions you want to keep. But for now, we have a list is fine, but just make sure that before you finalize it, you keep it to a certain a comfortable number, which I'm not going to tell you. Okay, you go and decide. Okay, so with this, I'm going to end today's lesson. I will see you again at 1 o'clock, and then we will talk about ERC. All right?
Okay.
Okay, if you have no question, you may go. Okay, Joel and Winnie, I need to talk to you for a while.